Hey everybody, so chapters 9 and 10, this is going to be the second day we've done this. We're going to take a look at what is essentially going to be lessons 3 of chapter 9 and lesson 1 of chapter 10. So here we go. We left off yesterday with Hoover finally starting to have to do some things. And what we're going to see him do, and at least try to do, are three different things. And you can see them on the screen here: rescuing America, underneath that, rescuing banks and businesses, and then underneath that, rescuing the average American. And so going across from left to right are each of these three topics because Hoover understands that all three of these things are connected, that you can't rescue America without rescuing the banks and businesses. And you can't do that without rescuing the average American. So, how is he going to do this? What's his grand plan? His big idea is right here at the tippy top, right next to my head. He wants to put Americans back to work building things like hospitals or libraries or um, schools and anything like things that the government would fund. And if we can put those Americans back to work, well, that's going to be a really good thing. But there's trouble with that, right? Because right next to my head, you can see that you have to pay for these things. You can't just pull a hospital out of your butt and be like, we're going to build a hospital. You have to pay for it. Now, to do that, the government's going to either have to raise taxes on people to get money from them so we can then pay for the stuff, or it's going to have to borrow the money from someone. Well, wait a minute here. This is going to make Hoover really worried because he wants to think, I mean, he thinks about this. If he raises taxes or if he borrows, especially if he raises taxes, people will have less money to spend. So what is he going to do? He doesn't want to raise taxes because that would be bad. People would have less money to spend. So he's going to end up trying to find ways to borrow money. And that's why we're going to come down to this: rescuing banks and businesses. Because if you're going to borrow money, who's going to give it to you? A bank. And who needs it? A business. So, to help banks and businesses, Hoover is going to create two specific programs. The first program is going to be the National Credit Corporation. And the National Credit Corporation, really what it does is it gets a bunch of money from the government and it says, okay, you need some, this bank over here, this bank over here needs some, that bank over near there needs some. Every bank gets a little bit. He's going to do the same thing with businesses, only he's going to call this program Reconstruction Finance Corporation. And its goal is to do the same thing. We gave out that money to the different banks, and now we're going to give it out to the different businesses. So our goal is to make loans to those businesses too. The problem is, as you can see right next to my head, both of those programs fail because they don't give banks or businesses enough money. You can give someone money, but it doesn't mean it's going to be enough. Like if I need $10 and you give me five, I mean, that's great. Thanks for giving me $5, but I needed 10, right? So this is the reality. Our economy needs billions and billions of dollars, and Hoover just doesn't give it enough. You could say the same thing about how he tries to help the average American. The average American lives in small towns at this time. Now, obviously, you have huge cities like New York and places like that, but there's a lot of people that live in small towns. And Hoover says, I don't get it. The government in Washington, D.C. doesn't know what we need in Manchester, Pennsylvania. He wants states and cities to give support to the poor. So what he does is sign the Emergency Relief and Construction Act, and it provides loans to states. It says, okay, Pennsylvania, you can borrow this money, and in return, you give that money to your citizens if you need it.